July 15th, 1997, Miami Beach, Florida. A beautiful Tuesday morning. Just another perfect day in paradise. Gianni Versace stepped out of his mansion. The famous fashion designer, one of the most recognized names in the world, was wearing casual clothes. Shorts, a simple shirt. He'd just returned from breakfast at his favorite nearby cafe. In his hands, he carried magazines, fashion magazines, design magazines, his morning ritual. He walked up the steps to his front door. The beautiful mansion, called Casa Casuarina, sat right there on Ocean Drive. Limestone walls, Mediterranean style. A house fit for royalty. Gianni reached for his keys. Behind him, footsteps approached quickly. A man in a gray T-shirt and black shorts. A white baseball cap pulled low over his face. A backpack on his shoulders. The man raised a gun. 2 shots rang out across Ocean Drive. Gianni Versace collapsed on his own front steps. Blood pooled around his body. His magazines scattered across the ground. The man in the white hat turned and walked away, calm, casual, like nothing had happened. Witnesses screamed. Someone called 911. Within minutes, police arrived. Paramedics rushed Versace to the hospital, but it was too late. At 9:21 a.m., Gianni Versace was pronounced dead, 50 years old, one of the most famous designers in the world, shot twice in the head on his own doorstep. The question echoed across Miami Beach, across America, across the world. Who would kill Gianni Versace? And why? Before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from in the comment. Also, like, subscribe, and share this video. Now, let's continue. The FBI already knew the answer. They'd been hunting the killer for months. His face was on wanted posters. His name was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Newspapers called him one of the most dangerous men in America. His name was Andrew Cunanan, 27 years old. And Gianni Versace wasn't his first victim. He wasn't even his 5th. Let's go back 3 months earlier. April 1997. Andrew Cunanan lived in San Diego, California. To people who knew him, he seemed to have it all. He wore expensive clothes, drove a nice car, ate at fancy restaurants. He told elaborate stories about his wealthy family, about his connections to famous people, about his glamorous life. But it was all a lie. Andrew came from a normal family. His father had been a stockbroker who'd fled the country after stealing money. His mother struggled to make ends meet. Andrew had no job, no real money of his own. Everything he had came from older, wealthy men he dated. Men who gave him money, bought him things, let him use their credit cards. Andrew was good at pretending, good at lying, good at being whoever people wanted him to be. In high school, his classmates voted him most likely not to be forgotten. They had no idea how true that would become. But by April 1997, Andrew's perfect fake life was falling apart. His latest wealthy boyfriend had broken up with him. He'd discovered Andrew wasn't who he claimed to be. The credit cards were cut off. The money stopped flowing. Andrew was broke, desperate, and something inside him was breaking. Friends noticed he was drinking heavily, taking pills, behaving strangely. He'd always been a liar, but now he seemed unstable, angry, dangerous. On April 24th, Andrew attended a going-away party with friends. For the first time anyone could remember, he couldn't pay the bill. His credit cards were maxed out. He had to ask for a credit extension just to buy a plane ticket. A plane ticket to Minneapolis, Minnesota. He told friends he had business to take care of there. Nobody asked what kind of business. Nobody suspected that Andrew Cunanan was about to become a killer. In Minneapolis, 2 men waited. Men who'd once been part of Andrew's life. Jeffrey Trail was 28 years old, a former Navy officer, tall, handsome, successful. He worked as a manager for a propane delivery company. He'd known Andrew for years. They'd been friends, maybe more than friends. But recently, Jeffrey had been pulling away. He'd told his roommate that Andrew was selling drugs. He didn't want to be involved anymore. Didn't want Andrew in his life. The week before Andrew arrived, Jeffrey told his sister something chilling. "I made a lot of enemies this weekend. They're going to kill me." The second man was David Madsen, 33 years old, an architect. Smart, kind, well-liked. He dated Andrew briefly a year earlier, but ended the relationship. He told friends Andrew seemed shady. Something wasn't right about him. Andrew called David the love of my life. On April 27, 1997, Andrew arrived in Minneapolis. That night, neighbors in David Madsen's apartment building heard loud voices, shouting, an argument, then silence. 2 days later, April 29th, one of David's co-workers got worried. David hadn't shown up to work, hadn't called. That wasn't like him. The co-worker went to David's apartment to check on him, knocked on the door, no answer. The door was unlocked. He walked inside. Behind the sofa, rolled up in a rug, was a body, Jeffrey Trail, his skull crushed, beaten to death with a hammer. Police arrived. They searched the apartment. Blood everywhere. Signs of a violent struggle. But where was David Madsen? And where was Andrew Cunanan? David's Jeep was missing from the parking garage. His dog had been left alone in the apartment for days. Had David been killed too? Or was he part of this somehow? For 3 days, police searched, put out alerts, checked cameras, interviewed everyone who knew Jeffrey and David. Then, on May 3rd, a fisherman near Rush Lake, about an hour north of Minneapolis, made a horrible discovery. A body in the woods, face down, shot once in the head. David Madsen. Police found David's Jeep abandoned nearby. No sign of Andrew Cunanan. 2 murders. 2 friends. Both dead within a week of Andrew's arrival. The FBI put out a warrant for Andrew's arrest. But he'd vanished. 300 miles away in Chicago, Illinois, a wealthy man named Lee Miglin was starting his Sunday. Lee was 72 years old, a real estate developer who'd built some of Chicago's most famous buildings. He and his wife Marilyn were considered 2 of the city's finest citizens, successful, charitable, beloved. On Sunday, May 4th, 1997, Marilyn was out of town on business. Lee stayed home at their mansion in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. That afternoon, neighbors noticed Lee's garage door was open, unusual for the always careful businessman. The next morning, Monday, Lee didn't show up for work. His staff called the house. No answer. Someone went to check on him. What they found in the garage would haunt Chicago for years. Lee Miglin's body was under a car, his hands bound, his head wrapped in tape with just a small hole left so he could breathe. He'd been tortured, stabbed with gardening shears, his throat cut with a saw. The brutality was shocking. Worse than anything police had seen. Inside the house, investigators found more disturbing signs. Someone had eaten ham from the kitchen, taken a shower, shaved, made themselves comfortable, like they'd had all the time in the world. Lee Miglin's green Lexus was missing. So was cash from the house. At first, Chicago police had no idea who killed Lee Miglin. No idea why. It seemed random, senseless. But the FBI connected the dots quickly. They'd been tracking Andrew Cunanan since the Minneapolis murders. Now he was in Chicago, 3 murders in 8 days. And Andrew Cunanan was heading east. May 9th, 1997. Pennsville Township, New Jersey. A quiet rural area. peaceful, safe. Nothing bad ever happened there. Finns Point National Cemetery sat surrounded by woods, a historic cemetery, a place of rest and quiet. William Reese was the cemetery caretaker, 45 years old, married, hard-working. He lived in a small house on the cemetery grounds. That evening, when William didn't come home for dinner, his wife got worried. She walked to the caretaker's office to look for him. The door was open. The radio was playing inside, but William wasn't there. She called police. They found William Reese behind the office, shot once in the head, the same gun that killed David Madsen. William's red Chevrolet pickup truck was missing. Unlike Andrew's other victims, William Reese didn't know Andrew Cunanan, had never met him, had no connection to him at all. Police realized a horrible truth. Andrew killed William Reese simply because he wanted his truck. A random murder. A stranger killed for a vehicle. 4 murders in 12 days, crossing multiple states. And Andrew Cunanan was still free. The FBI added Andrew to their 10 most wanted list. His face appeared on TV shows, newspapers, wanted posters. $1 million reward was offered. Everyone in America was looking for Andrew Cunanan, but nobody could find him. Then silence. Weeks passed. No more murders. No sightings, no clues. Where was Andrew Cunanan? Had he fled to Mexico? To Canada? Was he hiding in the woods somewhere? Was he even still alive? The FBI worked around the clock, checked every tip, followed every lead, but Andrew had vanished like smoke. May turned into June, June into July, and then, on July 15th, 1997, in Miami Beach, Florida, Andrew Cunanan walked up behind Gianni Versace and pulled the trigger. The question that haunted investigators: why Versace? Why Miami? And how had Andrew stayed hidden for 2 whole months? The answers would shock everyone. After killing William Reese in New Jersey, Andrew Cunanan drove the stolen red pickup truck south, all the way to Florida, to Miami Beach. On May 12, 1997, just 3 days after his 4th murder, Andrew checked into a cheap hotel called the Normandy Plaza. He paid cash, $29 per night. He used his own name, his real name, Andrew Cunanan. That's right, the man on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. The man whose face was on TV every single day. He checked into a hotel using his actual name, and nobody noticed. For 2 whole months, Andrew Cunanan lived in Miami Beach. He walked the streets, went to nightclubs, ate at restaurants, even went to the beach, all while being one of the most wanted men in America. How? How did nobody recognize him? Some people did. At least 3 different people called the police, saying they'd seen Andrew Cunanan. One was a sandwich shop worker who was certain the man ordering food was a killer from TV. Police responded. They searched the area, but they never found him. Andrew was always just 1 step ahead, 1 block away, 1 minute gone. The truth was worse. Police weren't searching very hard. Miami Beach had a large community of LGBTQ people. Andrew fit right in. Police didn't alert local businesses, didn't put up posters in the neighborhoods where Andrew was hiding. Later, the community criticized police for not taking the threat seriously enough, for not protecting them. But the biggest mistake was still to come. On July 7th, 8 days before he killed Versace, Andrew did something incredibly bold and incredibly stupid. He walked into a pawn shop. He sold a gold coin he'd stolen from one of his earlier victims. The pawn shop owner asked for identification, as required by Florida law. Andrew gave his real driver's license, his real name, his real information. The pawn shop sent the information to police, as required by law. Andrew Cunanan's name, his thumbprint, the address of his hotel, everything police needed to catch him. But the paperwork sat in a pile, unnoticed, unchecked. If that information had been entered into a computer system immediately, police would have gone straight to Andrew's hotel, would have arrested him. Gianni Versace would still be alive, but it didn't happen. By July 14th, Andrew had run out of money. He checked out of his hotel without paying for his last night. Just walked away. Where did he sleep that night? Nobody knows. But the next morning, July 15th, Andrew was on Ocean Drive, waiting. Some investigators believe Andrew knew Versace's routine, knew he walked to the cafe every morning, knew what time he'd return home. Others think it was random, that Andrew happened to see the famous designer and made a split-second decision. The truth? Nobody knows. Andrew never told anyone why he killed Gianni Versace. Did they know each other? The FBI believed they'd met years earlier at an opera event in San Francisco. Andrew had bragged to friends about being friends with Versace, but Andrew lied about everything. He claimed to know lots of celebrities he'd never actually met. Versace's family insists Johnny never knew Andrew, never met him, never spoke to him. Whatever the truth, on that July morning, Andrew walked up behind Gianni Versace and shot him twice, once in the back of the head, once in the cheek. Then Andrew walked away, disappeared into the crowd. The most famous murder of his spree, the one the whole world would remember. After killing Versace, Andrew vanished again. Police searched everywhere. Helicopters flew over Miami Beach. Officers checked hotels, beaches, alleys, abandoned buildings. Where was he? For 8 days, nobody knew. Then, on July 23rd, a man named Fernando Carrera, who took care of boats for rich people, went to check on a fancy houseboat. It belonged to a wealthy man who was away on vacation. Fernando noticed something odd. The door was unlocked. Lights were on inside. "I thought it was a homeless person," Fernando said later. "Or maybe a burglar." He started to go inside, then heard a sound, a gunshot. Fernando ran. Called 911. Police surrounded the houseboat. SWAT teams, sharpshooters, helicopters overhead. "Come out with your hands up," they shouted through loudspeakers. No response. Hours passed. Police waited. Was Andrew inside? Was he still alive? Was this a trap? Finally, they sent a robot inside with a camera. The camera showed a body on the bed. A man, a gun in his hand. Police entered carefully. They found Andrew Cunanan dead, shot once in the head. The same gun he'd used to kill Jeffrey Trail, David Madsen, William Reese, and Gianni Versace. He'd killed himself. The 3-month manhunt was over. Later, investigators learned Andrew had been hiding on that houseboat for several days. The houseboat was only 2 miles from where Versace was killed. Andrew had been there the whole time. While police searched all of Miami Beach, he was hiding in plain sight on a luxury boat. Inside the boat, they found his backpack, the clothes he'd worn when he killed Versace, but they didn't find answers. No diary, no confession, no note explaining why he'd done any of this. Andrew Cunanan took his reasons to the grave. Investigators tried to understand. Why did Andrew kill 5 people? What made him snap? Some thought he was angry about being HIV positive, but his autopsy proved he didn't have HIV. That theory was wrong. Others thought he was jealous. Jeffrey Trail and David Madsen were moving on with their lives. Maybe Andrew couldn't handle losing them, but that didn't explain Lee Miglin, or William Reese, or Gianni Versace. The truth is simpler and sadder. Andrew Cunanan was a deeply troubled person who built his entire life on lies. When those lies collapsed, when his fake life fell apart, something inside him broke. He was 27 years old, losing his looks, out of money, no real friends, estranged from his family, nothing left of the glamorous life he'd pretended to have. And instead of facing reality, he chose violence. 5 innocent people died because one man couldn't handle the truth about himself. Today, Gianni Versace's mansion is a luxury hotel and restaurant. Tourists visit, take photos on the steps where he died. The building stands as a memorial to his life and creativity. Andrew Cunanan's body was cremated. His ashes were buried in San Diego. No memorial, no marker anyone would recognize. The families of his victims still grieve, still wonder why, still live with the pain of losing people they loved to senseless violence. And the biggest mystery remains. Could this have been stopped? If police had checked that pawn shop record, if someone had recognized Andrew sooner, if the FBI had searched harder, maybe not. But 5 people would still be alive, and one of fashion's brightest stars wouldn't have died on his own doorstep on a beautiful July morning. This is Crime Source. Subscribe for more true crime stories like this.